Welcome to the MindsetGo radio show. I'm your host, Mark Altman. Great to be back here on a Thursday afternoon. And hope you're all having a great week, stress-free or a low-stress week. Hope you're all being mindful of your actions. And the 4 communication ingredients, as I always stress, which are word choice, tone, body language, reading it, responding to it, demonstrating it, and finally, active listening. So hope you're all being mindful of those 4 communication areas. And today we're going to talk about ROI. And for those of you who are not familiar with the acronym, ROI stands for Return on Investment. And to put it simply, you're spending an amount of money, you're spending an amount of time, and what are you getting for the investment of money and time? What is the return? What is the reward for that investment of money and time? And so companies are making these decisions all the time. When they're hiring people, when they're investing in new technology, when they're investing in product innovation, when they're investing in additional resources for the company and the personnel of the company, there's tons of areas. Efficiencies. And so companies are making these decisions all the time. But today we're going to talk about personal ROI. What is your ROI personally in terms of what you contribute personally, what you contribute to your company in all of those areas? And I'm going to pose a question to you to start the show today. And this is really an interesting question. If you were to work 14 hours a day for the next 365 days, and the reward for that would be that you'd get paid $1 million to do so. It's approximately 5,100 hours, all right, which would average about $200 per hour. So you'd get to sleep, eat, maybe even squeeze in a workout or something fun, favorite TV show for half an hour. But the rest of it, every day for 14 hours a day for the next 365, you're working for $1 million. Well, many people would hear that and go, I do that in a heartbeat. For just 1 year, I can earn $1 million? Well, sure, it's 1 year of your life, right? But there's many people, or a decent amount of people, who make more than $200 an hour who would that trade-off, because they would assess not only is it less money, but they would wonder what they're missing out on. Are they missing out on quality time with their family, with their significant other, on a hobby they enjoy? Maybe they enjoy playing sports or musical instruments or some kind of hobby they enjoy. And so they would say, you know what, that wouldn't be worth it to me. And so whether it's $1 million, whether it's 500,000, often on social media you'll see these things and say, would you run through the street naked for, $100,000? And people start evaluating, well, I don't know, is the embarrassment worth $100,000? And so the point of this is understanding what your worth is, understanding what your value is. And I often tell this story that several years ago, I made a decision, and it's very simple, but I want people, as we go through the show today, I want to create a foundation for personal ROI on a personal level so you can see where it transitions on a professional level. So growing up, I used to love to mow my lawn. Didn't like to weed, didn't like to do most other yard work, but mowing the lawn I enjoyed. And so when I bought a house, and when I bought my second house, after I sold my first one, I had a big lawn. But I said, you know what, I'm going to go mow the lawn. And so I started to do it the first few months. The first summer I owned the house, I would do it. And it would take me 4 or 5 hours to mow the lawn between dumping the grass, making the trips to dump the grass, and mow the lawn. It took me a long time. And so I'm a pretty busy guy. I'm a pretty active father. I love sports, and I work a lot. And so I started to say, man, if of the 2 days I have on the weekend, 4 or 5 hours of that almost every weekend I have to go to mowing the lawn, that doesn't feel like good use of my time. So now I have to make the decision. I guess I need to bring in a landscaper and make the investment to bring in a landscaper. Well, so there it is. There's ROI. Do I pay a landscaper to come mow my lawn? So I have to look at a few things. One, do I look at how much is it going to cost me to pay a landscaper, and what's my time worth? What do I want to get paid for hours? So if I was out here doing 5 hours of work for mowing the lawn, what else could I be doing in that time that would be better or more valuable for my time? So even though I'm paying money that I'm not ordinarily paying, if I conclude my time is worth more than that in my ROI, and assuming I can afford it, I make the decision to hire a landscaper. So as we look at our free time, start out by understanding the decisions you make with your free time. And when everybody is running around shouting from the mountaintops how busy they are, well, you could do something about that. You know, you could hire a landscaper to take care of your yard. You could hire a cook, potentially to cook some meals for you and your family. But everything costs money, right? But that's just it. Every time you're going to spend money, you're evaluating, certainly for middle to larger scale costs, what is the return on the investment? If you're buying a car and your budget's 30 and all of a sudden you decide to spend 40, well, you know the car dealerships will tell you that $10,000 extra broken out over a 5-year lease isn't all that much money. So is your enjoyment level for a $40,000 car worth $10,000 more than a $30,000 car? Maybe. But that, again, shows you how broad the concept of return on investment is. Okay, it's not just about money. It's not just about time. It's about your enjoyment, your passion, how you feel about what you're doing. And what got me thinking about this coming in today was, you know, the Red Sox just fired their general manager, Dave Dombrowski. Why? Because they have the highest payroll in baseball. They're almost 20 games out of first place. They're not even going to make the playoffs. And Red Sox ownership's looking around going, we're going to pay you. We're going to have the highest payroll in baseball, and this is what we get for it? So the Red Sox concluded, we're not getting enough ROI from our general manager. He's done. But understand as we go through the show today, that's how ROI works. The impact that you create for an organization. Okay? And think about this for a minute. The impact you create for an organization and the impact that you see and that they see, that's what the show is about today. And before we get into to corporate America and how you demonstrate personal ROI, I want to cover one last thing on this from a personal level. If you're a parent listening to this show right now and your son or daughter plays hockey, or your son or daughter is on some AAU sports team, you know what I'm talking about. And from the hockey parent perspective, everybody knows, you know, oh, hockey parent, that's a different breed. I was one of them. I played hockey as a kid. My 12-year-old played hockey for a few years, and I was one of them. You're an AAU parent? What do hockey parents and AAU parents have in common? Very simple. The investment of money and time. Hockey, super expensive sport. AAU team, very expensive proposition. Okay? Time, if you're a hockey parent, you're going to practices at 5, 6 in the morning, 9, 10, 11 at night as the kids get older. You're traveling to all these places on almost every weekend. AAU, you're traveling all over the place, practices during the week, games and practices on the weekends. It's a huge investment of time and money. So why are hockey parents and a lot of AAU parents out of control? Because they're wanting a return. What do they want as the return? They want the coaches to give their kids playing time. They want the coaches to be really good coaches. They want the referees to be good referees and not blow calls and not, quote unquote, cost their kids games. Because they're paying good money. They're there at all hours. So I better get good coaching and I better get good officiating. Right? And you better be sure my kid's going to work hard. Because if I'm investing all this time and money, my kid better work hard. And my kid better enjoy this. There's all these expectations, spoken and unspoken, about ROI with your kids. So whether you're a hockey parent, whether you're an AAU parent, you're investing so much time that you expect a lot of things in return. And whether you've actually articulated those things out loud, whether you're just thinking them in your head, most people will agree that, yeah, boy, Mark, when you think about it that way, I guess I do expect it. So when we come back from our first break, we're going to talk today about how you can demonstrate personal ROI in the workplace and what are the key ingredients to demonstrating that personal ROI in the workplace. I'm Mark Altman for the Mindset Go Radio Show. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the Mindset Go Radio Show. I'm your host, Mark Altman, and just want to tell you a little bit about Mindset Go. People really appreciative of our loyal listeners. People are giving me feedback and comments about the show. I'm getting emails with questions about how I can help their company and so on and so forth, whether that's through training, coaching, consulting, even speaking. But what I want to talk about is what Mindset Go does is what I've realized through my years of experience working with individuals, teams, organizations, so on and so forth, is that whatever problem a company has, whether it's leadership, engagement, culture, team building, sales, service, whatever the issues are, it all comes back to communication skills. And that's why the three areas we focus on helping companies, one is emotional intelligence, one is conversational intelligence and the ability to have very difficult conversations, and the third is multi-generational intelligence. And there are 5 generations in the workplace, and how do those 5 generations effectively interact with one another? And those are the 3 areas which I've identified as the primary areas to help in communication at a company. So regardless of what your problem is, we have a solution that we think is one size fits all, and it's been proven one size fits all. So as we kind of evaluate what is our personal ROI to a company, a lot of us rest on terms like loyalty, hard work, perseverance, diligence, and those are great things. Don't get me wrong; they're great assets, right? But they're high-level assets. They don't really get to the root cause of not only what is your personal contribution to the company, but how you're helping the company reduce costs, increase sales, increase employee retention, help employee engagement, help client engagement for that matter. So look, all those things are really, you can work hard, you can be loyal, you can be diligent, but how are you impacting the things I just mentioned? And it's your salary, your benefits. They're expecting an ROI. Okay? So, and by the way, here's what's interesting about personal ROI. The 2 areas we're going to cover for the rest of the show are how do you communicate it and how do you demonstrate it? And what's fascinating to me is communicating it, believe it or not, this is conversational intelligence, is almost as hard for people to demonstrate it. Why? Because we're taught from a young age to be humble. We're taught to think about teams and not individuals, and have a mindset at how we can contribute not as an individual, but as part of a team. So a lot of people don't know how to talk about themselves. And the problem is, it's the same as assertive and aggressive. If you talk about yourself, are you perceived as arrogant or cocky, or are you perceived as just confident? And so many people struggle to express their worth and value because they don't want to walk around with that stigma or perception. They don't want people to think of that they're full of themselves. But when you're confident and you express your value, that doesn't mean you're full of yourself. It has to do with how you express yourself. Are you talking about your contributions every day? Is there a frequency for how often you can express your contributions without you or the company feeling like, oh, why is this person talking about themselves all the time? It's a conundrum. And this is why I say how you demonstrate your ROI is important, but if you think you're providing a huge impact and contribution to the company, but the company doesn't see it, then what? Because then when it comes time for bonuses and promotions and recognition, you're going to be hurt, you're going to be disappointed, you're going to feel rejected if the company doesn't see it. And let's face it, sometimes companies don't see it because they're caught up in day-to-day busyness. Not an excuse, not even a rationalization. It's a reality. So it could be up to you to give people the awareness and the vision of what your personal ROI is for the company. So let's break it down. There's 4 components of it, right? First of all, what are you really good at? And one of the things I mention when I work with adults on this, whether it's leaders or individuals, is a lot of people don't really appreciate the things they're good at, and they'll tend to minimize them. So make a list. Take 5 or 10 minutes. This is not a long task. Take 5 or 10 minutes and make a list of things you're really good at. There are no wrong answers. Don't sit there and say to yourself, well, this one probably doesn't count. Because it might. Because if you, and I'm going to give you an example, if you have a skill where you are part of a team at a company and you're the one that people look to get people to shift their perspectives, embrace new ideas, mediate conflicts, so people count on you to kind of do that during group meetings or brainstorming sessions, that's a huge value. Now, it might not say that on your review. It might not be part of your job description, but that's a great communication skill for you to have. And not only is it valuable in the way I just said, what you don't realize is it improves productivity, it improves efficiency, it improves employee relationships because you're pulling people together and you're keeping things moving. So that's a prime example of something you might really be good at, but you might not write it down because you might not either realize it or think it's that worthwhile, but it is. Second ingredient, what makes you special? Here's what I mean by what makes you special. I want you to be able to finish this sentence. Let's pretend someone thought you were leaving your company and they said, oh my God, if so-and-so leaves, we're going to be really in trouble. How do we handle blank? And hopefully they're saying, how would we handle blank, blank, and blank? That's important because to really understand the impact you have on a company, if you're leaving the company and the person isn't losing a lot of sleep over it, the team, the company, your boss, whoever, then you really haven't done a good job demonstrating your impact. And this is what I meant when I talked about hard work and loyalty. Those things are great. But working a lot of hours doesn't necessarily indicate impact. And a lot of people want to say they're working 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week, but if you're not generating the kind of results that someone's looking for, then that hard work doesn't matter as much when it comes to personal ROI. And so understanding the impact that you create for a company, it's 2 things. What would they say? Would they really do they really recognize what the loss would be? And do you know what the loss would be? Are you able to demonstrate it? Because if you can't demonstrate it, how are they going to be able to demonstrate it? The third one is what distinguishes you from your peers. And I'm going to actually save that one for last. I'm going to cover the fourth one. And the fourth one is, how do you personally help the company achieve its goals? And that's pretty simple, right? The company has a vision, it has a mission, it has expectations. And what are you doing from a higher level? And I'll give you a quick example. Let's say part of the company's mission is to do philanthropic work or work with nonprofits. That's not necessarily part of your job description, but are you doing things to help further that mission? So that would be an example of an additional way you could help the company achieve its corporate goals. But the one I mentioned a moment ago, what distinguishes you from your peers, is huge. And when I say peers, I'm not just talking about the people on your team and that you work with, whether it's leadership or just people on your team. I'm talking about people that could take your job. Think about going on a job interview and a person says to you, boy, I've interviewed 10 candidates for this position. Why should I hire you as opposed to everybody else? Do you know how to answer that question? And not only do you know how to answer it, but do you know how to answer it by giving tangible and specific reasons that will prove that? Because if you can't, that's a problem. Because your value, your personal ROI to a company, someone's got to be able to look and say, oh, boy, we know we can count on so-and-so for this because they're the problem solver. They're the conflict resolver. They're the negotiator. What unique set of qualities or characteristics do you have that really you're known for? It's your identity and that distinguish you from your peers. And do you have actual examples that will support it? Those are huge. So those are as we head into our second break, understand those are the key things for personal ROI. What are you good at? What makes you special that people couldn't live without? What distinguishes you from your peers? Your identity, your value, and how do you personally help the company achieve its goals and vision and expectations and mission? So when we come back, we're going to talk about, those are 4 things that are critical, but there's a crossover that I'm seeing a lot of companies are missing. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about these 2 other ingredients that intersect that are critical. And when we come back, I'll share them. This is Mark Altman for the Mindset Go Radio Show. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the Mindset Go Radio Show. We're talking about personal ROI. And if you're just joining and missed the top of the show, ROI stands for return on investment. And we're talking about what that actually means and how you demonstrate and communicate your personal ROI. And the simple way to put it is return on investment, as I mentioned, is typically the time and money that you put in and what you get back for it. I mean, that's very simple layman terms to put it. So I promised when we came back from the break, I would discuss the crossover. And so there's 2 major ingredients that intersect with the 4 things I mentioned before the break. One is your passion and what you love. And what's interesting to me about that is we're hearing a lot, part of this multi-generational intelligence thing is we're hearing a lot of comments in the workplace about millennials. And the stigma and perception around millennials is, boy, they're changing jobs a lot, they're hard to please, they don't really have a clear knowledge or clarity on what they really want to be doing, and they're seeking really a higher sense of purpose and passion. And so what about that? How important is having that passion in the workplace? Because people can see if you enjoy your job. So when you talk about your personal ROI, what kind of influence are you? Are you a positive influence or negative influence? And I think that how you demonstrate your passion, are you passionate? Do you come to work every day fired up? And even if it's not every day, no one comes to work every day fired up, but do you come to work more often than not fired up? So that passion piece is really important because whenever I talk to salespeople, I say, if you're not excited, genuinely and authentically excited about the product or service you're selling, then your prospect isn't going to be either. And that goes in the workplace too. If you're not that passionate or demonstrating that, that's going to affect the ROI because certainly if you're not a negative influence, you could say, well, I'm not a negative influence. Maybe I'm not a positive influence. I'm kind of neutral. But neutral might not be ideal either. Because if people don't really get a sense that you love what you're doing, then it could impact your ability to be promoted or be recognized and so on and so forth. So that's an important crossover. But the most important crossover that companies are missing all the time is understanding what their team members or leaders aspire to be good at or improve at. And what's interesting is what I see a lot with onboarding programs is one of the challenges I'm seeing in organizations is the onboarding programs, if they exist, are very heavily focused on policies and procedures and knowledge about, the leadership team, the services and products that the company sells, the vision, mission, etc. And those are all critical things. I wouldn't change any of that. However, where are the communication skills? Where are the soft skills as part of the onboarding? What are the critical skills that to thrive at a company an individual needs? Does an individual know how to effectively communicate their feelings and thoughts and ideas? Isn't that a critical thing you want in a company? A lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that. A lot of people don't know how to do it. A lot of people are embarrassed to do it. Okay? Do you know how, when you're from a self-awareness or self-control perspective, can you recognize when you're frustrated, triggered? Do you have the self-awareness and the self-control to react to people in an emotionally intelligent way? I mean, that's a fundamentally critical thing in a skill you need to have at companies. So these onboarding programs are missing a lot of that communication aspect and the employee engagement, team building, interpersonal skills that you need to thrive at a company. But here's what's really going on. What happens at a company when you have demonstrated your personal ROI? You're doing a great job. People are recognizing you're doing a great job. For whatever reason, you're being recognized. And so what happens when you're recognized? Typically, you get a new opportunity, a promotion of sorts, whether that's from employee to mid-manager to executive team. You get a promotion, you get an opportunity. But there's no onboarding in those transitions, virtually none. So when you go to employee and mid-manager, whatever personal ROI that you demonstrated, whatever skills or competence or qualities or characteristics that you demonstrated, that's great, and I'm sure they will help you in your new position. But have you managed people before? Have you developed and helped other people aside from yourself grow before? That is a huge level of responsibility, and it's, frankly, a completely different set of responsibilities and skills. So here we are, we're promoting people at different levels within a company, but if they don't have the requisite leadership skills to thrive at that company, then they're set up to fail. And then all of a sudden, they start to demonstrate certain characteristics that we've never seen before. Maybe they're stressed, maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe they're not as productive, maybe they're not as happy. Why? Because they don't necessarily know what they're doing. And they're trying to get by because they like the company and they want to be successful, but they don't necessarily have the ability to step back and say, well, wait a minute, here's what's going on. I don't necessarily know how to understand this, this, and this. And then they're put in the position, the expectations are that you're going to thrive, and that if they don't understand this, this, and this, now they have to feel comfortable that the culture of the organization is such that they can go communicate those things and not look weak. And so when I look at the different opportunities for growth, one of the things I had a lot of companies reaching out asking me to do, I actually took quite a long time to build a leadership and emotional intelligence assessment to really identify where leaders are falling short in companies. And there are really about 30 key leadership skills. And I know that seems like a lot, but I assure you, if you look at this list, you're going to say, wow, those are all really important skills. And here's what's interesting, okay? If a leader has 15 of those 30 skills, theoretically, they could still be effective. But the point I'm trying to make is you have to have the understanding of what are the skills that you don't yet have. And this final piece I was sharing in the crossover is, what do you aspire to be good at or improve at? Because think of this. Are you self-aware of the skills you don't have? Is the person who manages you aware of the skills you don't have? Are you aligned in those areas? But what do you aspire to be good at or improve at? Because you both could identify 5 things that you want to improve at, but you're not really excited to improve in those areas. I love when people tell me they can always learn something new. That throwaway line, they say, do you have a core value of learning? Oh yeah, I always like to learn something new. That's not really true in most cases. People typically like to learn something new if they're interested in it. But if they're not interested in it, they don't like learning. It's like, think about when you're back in school. If you would ask me, do I have a core value of learning? Oh yeah, I always like to learn. Well, not trigonometry, not geometry. I don't really care about those things, so I didn't really have a core value of learning there. So as we go into our final break, understand this. You've got to understand what you want to be good at and what you want to improve at. Because if there's a skill deficiency, but you're not excited about addressing those skills, then you're probably going to struggle. And in the long term, it's probably not going to be the right fit. Because if you've identified them, the company has identified them, or you've both identified them, and they're not addressed, it's going to hamper your ability to succeed. So the crossover is, what are you going to be good at? What do you aspire to be good at or improve? Where you're really motivated to get better? And what do you love? Are you a positive, negative influence? And do you come to work excited to be at work? When we come back for our final segment, we're going to talk about the interview questions, the 3 interview questions I always ask when I'm consulting, coaching, or interviewing people that I think are the top, most important, you cannot convince me otherwise, in understanding someone's true leadership abilities. This is Mark Altman for the Mindset Go radio show. We'll be back after the break. Okay, welcome back to the final segment of the Mindset Go radio show, and we've been talking about personal ROI, the 4 key criteria that you can start thinking about to really be able to articulate and communicate and demonstrate your ROI. And we talked about the crossover in the last segment about knowing what you would really be passionate about improving and where your passion is for your job and how you influence others. But I promised when we came back from the break I would talk about these key interview questions. And I have to tell you that most of the time when I ask these questions, leaders really struggle to answer. They're tough questions. And here's what they are. The first question I'm going to ask is, are you an effective motivator? What are your motivational strategies that you've employed over your career that have been successful? And understanding that motivation, a lot of companies rely on salary and bonuses and benefits and time off. Those are their core areas that they rely on to motivate. And then more and more companies are starting to understand the importance of recognition. So they're incorporating recognition into the motivational strategy. But I'm talking about a higher level of things that really cause you to get to, that really force you to get to the root cause. I'm talking about things like feedback. How do you give feedback to people? How often do you give feedback to people? How often do you review? And when I talk about feedback, I'm talking about constructive and positive feedback. Okay? Workload. Are you aware of people's workload? Are you aware of people's stress level? Are you recognizing those human qualities in them? Do you understand what passion and purpose are? Do you understand the areas they're looking to grow, personally and professionally? What kind of development opportunities are you offering them? Those are all key ingredients about motivation. And I hear a lot of executives say, I can't believe how ungrateful teams are. I give them a great salary, I give them time off, I give them benefits, and they're still not productive, or they're still not efficient, they still don't seem happy, because there's other ingredients to motivation. And so in all these 3 questions, they work both ways, right? If you're a leader, what are the ingredients you use to motivate your team? And if you're an employee, are you clear on what will motivate you? And have you shared that with your boss and said, this is the path to my heart. These are the things that really motivate me. It's a 2-way street, but it's key. Second interview question I ask is development. How do you develop people? What are the areas you are really effective in developing people? And that's critical. I was talking about what do you aspire to be good at or improved at in the last segment. But development, how do you develop people? Are you a good coach? Are you good at asking questions? Are you good at getting people to share information and be vulnerable? Are you good at getting people to recognize, without feeling lesser than themselves, where their shortcomings are? Those are all key ingredients in development. And so, how do you effectively motivate people? What strategies do you use? How do you effectively develop people? And what are some examples of people you've developed? And what were some of the strategies you used to develop them? How were they able to develop under your leadership? And then the third one is focus. Now, we live in a climate right now where there is so much distraction. And at a simple level, people from their own personal lives have so much distraction. Their kids, their finances. Talk about wellness. We talk about wellness, right? There's so many aspects to wellness. Relationship wellness. Do you have strong relationships with your family? Your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your significant other, your kids. Think of all the different components of those relationships that could distract your focus. Are you comfortable with your finances? Are you comfortable with your health? Physical, mental, emotional, financial, relationship wellness. Those are all personal things that can distract someone's focus at work. Are you aware of their distractions? Are you able to be empathetic to those distractions? But that's just at a peripheral, personal level. What about the distractions in the workplace? Loud people next to you in cubicles. People chatting about nonsense. People on social media. People checking their phone and texting all the time. Right? That's a second level of distraction in the workplace for focus. But then there's the highest level of all. People who maybe don't have any of those distractions, the first two levels. But it's the third level of distraction that kills them. And that is work overload. How many projects are they working on? How many people are they managing? How many problems are they solving? How late are they working to increase their stress level? Again, I mentioned this on the top of the show, work ethic, right? Everybody wants to champion the work ethic for ROI. But if you've got an employee that you're thrilled they're staying until 7 o'clock at night and working when they get home and checking emails and responding to emails, it's great. Boy, you're really getting a lot of quote-unquote ROI out of them. But how does that affect the bottom line, right? If they're stressed, if they're tired, it could affect their ability to communicate with others, their productivity and efficiency level. They could be working longer hours but not as efficient within those hours. So you've got 3 levels of distraction as a leader there. One is the personal level relationships in their personal lives and the 5 components. 2 is the distractions at work. And then 3 are the distractions that you might be creating for your individuals or for your teams and the people you're managing because of how you're managing. So the true leaders, to me, with all the 30 leadership skills I mentioned earlier in the show, the bottom line is, how do you effectively motivate people? How do you effectively develop people? And how do you keep them focused and on track to the mission, the goal, and expectations? And when you see them distracted, are you able to get them refocused? To me, those are the prime leadership skills that you need to be able to execute. And if you're trying to understand ROI in the workplace, whether you're an executive, a mid-level manager, an employee, I don't care what you do. But if you have figured out how to motivate others and what motivates you, how to develop others, and where your areas of development are, you're so emotionally intelligent and self-aware that you recognize those others, and how to get people focused and refocused. And by the way, when you do that on your own, that's big, because if you have the ability to use mindfulness to get yourself focused and refocused, that in itself is an amazing tool. So we're gonna continue to talk about this next week. It's such a broad topic, but as you go about this week, I want you to really think about those areas. And again, just to highlight the 4 I pointed out, what makes you good at your job? Why are you indispensable, so to speak? What are the things that you're really good at that build up a resume or a portfolio of ROI, of personal ROI? What distinguishes you from your peers in the workplace and the people that are trying to take your job, that you could stand out and say, this is why you need me more than them? And how do you personally help the company to achieve its goals? What do you aspire to be good at or improve at, which would really work to learn and put in the practice time to be better? And what do you love? What's your passion? How do you influence others? You've got to articulate it. You've got to be able to be self-aware of it. And you've got to be able to demonstrate it. Those are the 3 components of everything we've discussed today. Look, if you have any questions, please continue to email me at maltman@mindsetgo.com. My name is spelled MarkAltman. You can also call me at 978-206-1535. Happy to help you. Listen, we offer a complimentary assessment and evaluation. No strings. If you want to talk to us about coaching or training or speaking, we can certainly do that. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will look forward to continuing the conversation about personal ROI on next week's show. Have a wonderful week. I'm Mark Altman.